All right, so Paul, take us back before real estate. What were you doing and how did you get into this industry?
I'll give you an abridged version. Grew up in the Seattle area. Was a pretty good soccer player way back in the day. Good night. I was able to go to the University of Washington on a scholarship, and happened to get a degree in the meantime. One of those great marketable degrees. I was an English major with an emphasis in creative writing, so I could write you a sonnet, probably get some early grunge type of crap poetry to you. And
it comes in handy for the MLS descriptions.
Right.
It does, but what it was really handy is, I'm not sure if you guys noticed this, sometimes in the real estate world, grammar and syntax and punctuation and spelling get missed. And so I'll lose an entire email based on a couple misspelled words. My mind is gone and it's a problem. So, so I graduated in 95, and there weren't a ton of professional soccer opportunities available right at that time. Major League Soccer was a couple years away. Just to be clear, I was not at that level. I was a good Division I soccer player. So when I graduated, it was, what am I going to do? And I got a job at Nordstrom, of all places. And I was basically spent my 20s coaching different levels of youth soccer in the select soccer world, getting paid to coach. I coached at a local community college or junior college, depending on what part of the country you're listening to this from, the high school level, and a men's kind of semi-professional level. And that was sort of the vision and kind of what I did through my 20s. It was, wasn't in a relationship, well, nothing serious. And was kind of just thinking, how do I make $3,000 a month? That was kind of where I was at. And loved the experience. And I was seriously considering pursuing a soccer career in coaching. And the reality was, I wasn't quite ready or willing to move out of the area. I'm a born and bred North Seattle guy, and I just wasn't ready. I didn't really want to make the commitment. Family, friends, all those anchors were here. So, at least for my story, it was 29, 30, met a gal who is now my wife, and slowly started winding down some of the coaching things. And I got into a couple of sales positions outside of real estate, both in sports, actually. One was in the soccer world. So selling season ticket packages they eventually grew into the Seattle Sounders. They were called the Sounders back then, just wasn't Major League Soccer, but selling season tickets and group tickets, responsible for game day operations and setup and all of that. That has direct translation to a lot of what what I do today. And then from there, I started working for another company that was putting on consumer golf shows. And so I was selling, exhibitor booth space and sponsorships and, putting those packages together. In the midst of all that, my father has been in the business for 44 years now, 45 years. He got into real estate in 79 as a property manager, owned his own real estate company in the 80s, sold that in 90, worked for one of the big regional brands here for 7 or 8 years, and then went and worked, as an independent consultant, then went and joined with a local brand in our market, and then broke out that builder services division and rebranded it as Team Builder. And I won't give you the last name of the broker, it doesn't matter. in 2006, 2007. And so I bought the company from him in 2013. So going back to 2005, he picks me up one Saturday afternoon and says, "Hey, let's go look at some new developments I'm selling up where you live." And he was with a business partner, a managing broker at the time. And we're driving around, and I'm not thinking much of it. And he just said, this is the only time he's ever asked me this. He said, "Do you like selling?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, why don't you come sell for me and sell homes? Because it's a hell of a lot more money." Only time he's ever asked me to jump into real estate. And so by this point, I'm 32-ish. And he said, "Why don't you think about it for, a few weeks? And if you want to, let me know. And if you don't, that's okay too." So I thought about it and got a couple different opinions, and and so I called him back and I said, "All right, I'm in." So I had my full-time golf selling job, and I was doing my clock hours at night. By then, we were married, my wife and I, no kids yet. And this was 2005, and I got my license in October of 2005, actually got it on a Wednesday, and on the Saturday, that next Saturday morning, I was on site in a model home in just a town just north of Seattle, working with a seasoned veteran, selling apartments that were converted to condos. So that was 2005. We sold 73 units in 9 months, and I thought, wow, well, this is sweet. Yeah. So,
Paul, if you don't mind me asking, what was it that, in hindsight, what caused you to wait until you were in your early 30s to actually seriously consider working with your father? Had you considered that in your 20s, or what was the apprehension there?
Gosh, that's a fantastic question. How to answer that? I've always had a great relationship with my dad, still do to this day. I own our company, but he's still got an office, on a couple doors down, and he's still involved in the game and works 15, 20 hours a week with a couple developers that Team Builder doesn't represent. And, it took me a while to kind of give up or let the soccer part of my life go. It just took time for me to let it go. Probably in hindsight, there was a little bit of fear of, well, what am I going to do? What's it all about? I mean, the work and effort, my entire identity really, in my teens, in the, college years, it was about being a competitive soccer player. I mean, that was the drive. And I did the things necessary to make that happen. So all the extra work and all the time and all of that. And it's not nearly the things that are available today for the young athlete. Those weren't around, in the mid to late 80s. The best players back when I was playing are as good as the best players today. There's just more really good players in today. So, when I got into coaching, it was a really, really natural fit for me. I really liked it. Got to be a part of a couple of teams that did well in their respective leagues in the high school level and in the youth soccer ranks. So it was just a process of me just letting that go. And what I do know for me is I'm a routine guy. I enjoy the routine. Where routine gets dangerous for me is I can let it become routine. I can let it get comfortable. I have a tendency to kind of rest on my laurels and maybe not push.
I think that's
maybe not. That makes sense.
I really like, where you're going here, because I think it's actually a little bit opposite of what we talk about a lot. We talk about like not giving up on a dream. We talk about, pushing hard and thinking big and all these things. And I've got to imagine that for you, like a part of it was almost like letting go of this one dream to go now pursue something else. But even like what you just said there, I think it's interesting how a Division I athlete, like a successful Division I athlete, there was a
way skinnier back then. Just
there was
I like
a comfort.
You guys.
There was a comfort level there. And, sometimes I think as a high performer, we probably don't as readily admit that even though we're performing at a high level, we're in a comfort zone. And we're not pushing ourselves out of that comfort zone or taking risks to the extent that we should, whether for ourselves or our family or everyone else around us. And so I think there's like this interesting, juxtaposition going on here in your story a little bit, where even in high level athletics, there was a letting go of one thing to go pursue something else, because growth requires that we become uncomfortable. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And this is what I know for me. And so maybe it resonates with people or maybe it doesn't. I have to go through a certain amount of pain or discomfort to change anything. I don't think I'm unique in that. I think it's a little bit, it can be part of the human condition. Today, I recognize that I don't have to, hit a rock bottom in anything. But what I do need and what I value today is I need a small group of people in my life that know me, that I'm vulnerable with, that I'm upfront with, and I'm honest with, that they can provide me a perspective that I may not quite always have. One of the things I think about a lot, Paul sitting around thinking about Paul, about how Paul is doing, is not effective. It's not an effective way for me to live life. So, it's taken a long process for me to kind of get comfortable in my own skin, and letting go of that Division I, that inner competitiveness. Well, the inner competitiveness is 100% there, but letting go of that. Okay, my playing, I'm great, I love it, and coaching, great, that was awesome. And then now what? And one of the great blessings in my life is I do have a great relationship with my dad, and him just asking that little question at that time of my life, changed some trajectories. And I think at 32, and this is just for me, guys, I think I had gotten out of or gotten through the father-son thing. Oh, it's my dad. I went to a small private Christian school up here, and my dad was the high school soccer coach, and all my buddies love him and loved him back then, and but he's dad. But it just took it took me to get to be 32 where I was open to it. And, it was just the timing was right. And he did some clever things too. He assigned our managing broker, this guy named Mark, to be my direct report to. If there was any issue with me, he always had someone else go and deal with me or whatever. And there weren't a ton of issues, but yeah. So,
I think we could probably do an entire series on like familial, like business and stuff. Maybe we should think about doing that at some point, Joe.
Totally.
You mentioned something though just a minute ago, Paul, and I want to dive right into it. You actually used the phrase rock bottom. And, for our listeners, because I know we've spent some time here at the beginning of your story, but I mean, Team Builder, you've grown your business to just astronomical levels where you're closing over 500 units. You are doing, hundreds of millions of dollars in volume. But there was a period where I understand you actually kind of hit rock bottom. And I want to go into that a little bit because
Sure.
you've been very open with that, and I think it's going to be very insightful for our people. So take us through that journey. Tell our listeners a little bit about what I'm talking about.
Where's my? So I'll give you the punchline first, and then we'll back up. So as of today, I am 4 years, 9 months, and 5 days sober.
Congratulations.
So, anyone doing the math there, thank you. It's December 5th, 2016 is my sobriety date. And, for me, alcohol and drinking was a slow, progressive deal. A little bit of drinking in high school, nothing, I know people that it's like, whoa, kind of typical college stuff, where my drinking turned from maybe even a weekend warrior, anything was probably right around 2008, 2009. And that coincided with the Great Recession. And a little bit of me telling this story is with the benefit of recovery and with some hindsight. What really happened for me is, it's not mysterious. I like to drink. I like the effect that alcohol produced on me. It's nothing less. It's nothing more than that. And I can look back now where alcohol was the solution to all the stuff that was going on in my head and actually in my heart. I didn't see that at the time. And when the recession hit, like a lot of folks, it was extremely difficult financially. We were going to a family vacation over Thanksgiving. I think it was 2009. And on Wednesday morning, packing up the car, and there was a notice of foreclosure tacked above our garage door. And I was, I'm 48 now, so whatever that math is, late 30s. Early mid 30s, it doesn't even matter. And how I dealt with all that stress and all that fear of financial insecurity of, I'm failing my wife. By then I've got two boys who are 15 and 13 today. Just all the fear of failure. We're going to lose the house. I'm going to lose this. I'm a fraud. I'm a piece of crap. All that self-talk was all there. And then mixed in with that kind of low view of myself is this other part of me, which is that Division I athlete where, hey, I'm an ex-Division I college soccer player. So it's this weird battle that I was waging, unbeknownst to me. It is now, but so my drinking would just really progressed for 8 or 9 years. I was a daily drinker. Would start almost typically on the way home from work with a roadie, because I don't know how you get home from work without having something in the car, which at the time seemed super, super normal. So fast forward, in 2015, December 2015, I met with consequences of, whatever. I got a DUI in December of 2015. I was trying to couch it, but whatever. That wasn't the end for me, but it was the beginning of the end. And I had, in 2015, January 2015 is when I officially bought the company from my dad. And economy was coming out, getting better obviously by then. And, but my drinking was getting worse and worse. The bottom came in over 3 days in December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of 2016. And then I made the decision that was the best decision I've ever made other than marrying my wife. That's my sobriety date. And what it was like for me at the end is I was confronted, and I saw it in color. I had two choices. One was to keep drinking, and I was going to lose everything, and I was going to burn it all down. And honestly, I would have been the last asshole standing. So if you have to edit that out, sorry. But there was another path. There was another choice. And through some of the court things I had to go through, and all of that, I was introduced to a fellowship that has saved my life. And I don't need to mention the name. If you looked it up in a phone book, you would probably find it really, really early on in the phone book. And in those rooms is where I heard the truth. I heard a bunch of people tell my story and talk about alcohol and drinking exactly the way that I thought about it. And
so,
but
Paul,
I also heard go ahead.
I sorry to interrupt you, but like what's going on in your business during this time? Like, I mean, well, obviously you benchmarked the recession. You're kind of using alcohol like for the effects you said, and the numbing effects.
Yeah.
Was it to numb like the stress of not having business, or was it like the stress of growing business? Like, I mean, what was it?
That's fantastic. So during the recession, my dad, he was the owner of the company. I mean, he kept the company going and survived through the recession. There was no free lunch given to me. This wasn't, God, Dad, I need 50 grand to save my house. That was not even, I wouldn't have even asked him had I even thought he would have offered that. This was, during that time, my wife and I, we're just trying to figure it all out. And, thank God it wasn't my company during that time, because I would have lost it 100%. So by 2013, 14, the company started, got our legs back under us. One of the genius things that I think where we've really found, a foundation is in representing builders and developers. Those guys have to build, they have to develop property, they've got to sell homes. There's no let it go back to the bank. And so the business started kind of relaunching again in 2014 and 15. By that point, for me personally, though, I was I don't know if it was just an inner tenacity, an inner drive. I was able to, I was pretty high functioning. I was able to, get up and go to work and do all those things and get new business, handle the brokerage things that you're supposed to handle as a business owner, the business aspects of looking after the money and all those things. I just be drunk from 4 or 5 at night every day, but still high functioning. It's a bizarro universe with the perspective that I have now. And, but to just to bow tie it, what, for me, that rock bottom and everyone's bottom, anyone who's had any challenge with alcohol or drugs or anything like that, the circumstances all look a little bit different, honestly. Some similarities, some differences, but what the reality is the emotional and spiritual bankruptcy that exists, that's almost always the same. That's what I hear in any story, in any room I'm in, or anyone who's in recovery at any level. And that's the one thing that I can't give to anyone else, and no one can give that to me. And, I'm so thankful that I was able to receive that gift of desperation. That's kind of, and from there, that's been 4 years, 9 months, and 5 days and 3 hours, but who the hell's counting?
Question for you, Paul. You mentioned a few minutes ago, there became a point where you realized you could either burn it all down and you be the last asshole standing, or you could make a change. And the way I interpret that, and I want your feedback, is that you sort of had a realization of the responsibility that you had, and that if you continue to drink, then you may end up being very alone. And it almost sounds like you had an awareness of like, I have responsibility to the people around me, not only my closest family, but the business and my friends and all the other people that I affect. And it's like you started to own that responsibility. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, you are. There was a specific event that created this moment. And, fortunately, I never crossed any lines that was going to put my marriage that I couldn't recover my marriage from, I guess would be the polite way to say it. But I'm just for this, the context of this, I'm, my faith in a God that loves me, that loves you, that wants the best for me, leads all of this. And I grew up in the church and Christian schools and all of that, and I never quite made it my own. And I believe on December 5th, 2016, I think that was God's grace for me. I think that was okay. Paul, your time running the show is done. So let's go ahead and let go of the reins, so to speak. In that surrender is where my life started again, honestly. And that's a gift. And I remember that every day. But anyone who's in recovery, that last year and those last few days, those are pretty dark. So
you mentioned the word. You said both. You used the word surrender and then you used the word gift. I'm curious to know, when this event happened and moving forward, I'm curious to know how your internal conversation changed. What did you start saying, believing, thinking? Yeah. Because I imagine that's really what, I think you and I can agree. It all starts with your own. You said the reason you got into this was what you were saying to yourself in your head. So I imagine that was the first piece of getting out of it. Tell us a little bit about that internal journey at that point. Because I think sometimes if our listeners can hear the way that internal conversation changed, maybe we can get ahead of it and tweak what we're saying to ourselves now to hopefully avoid a rock bottom.
Yeah, no, that's great. Man, these are cliches, but there's cliches for a reason. What I focus on grows. And if my focus is on negative, I'm this, or I'm not getting that, that's all I'm going to think about. And, I needed to be able to get down to causes and conditions and really address just some deep personal fear. Being able to write any fears down on paper is cathartic, at least for me. To speak them out loud is actually cathartic. And to be able to do that with someone else that you trust, now that could be a business partner, maybe it could be spouse always is going to have the best perspective, but it could be a pastor or a priest or whomever. So what I've learned to embrace is I've got a daily routine that I follow ritually, and I've even changed it up over the past 3 or 4 months. And it starts with some daily prayer and meditation. I'm not sitting in front of the window for an hour with candles with Deepak on or anything like that. I'm certainly not doing, but I am diligent about getting up, not even jumping in the shower. I should probably exercise, but that's a whole different problem. But, I'll go out in our living area where it's quiet, and my alarm goes off at 5:15 in the morning. So I'm up early, and I take 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and I sit up straight. My eyes are closed. I do 3 or 4 minutes of just breathing, and that's all I'm thinking about is in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then I've got a prayer routine, and some of it's some learned prayers, canned prayers, if you will. And then it's more specific about, my family and friends and all of that. And the gist of it though is, Lord, in all things today, may thy will be done, not mine. And through all of that, I'm almost singularly focused, not always great, but it is on the process. Any KPA, any personality assessment that I've ever taken I'm typically a big picture guy. I appreciate other people doing details. I don't want to get bogged down in them. But what I've learned to kind of refocus myself is to set a goal, set an objective, throw it out into the ether and have metrics to measure it, but then put my head down and stay in the process. And, today as a business owner, I've got 3 or 4 metrics that I tick off, and I just review them at night, and I take 2 or 3 minutes, and some days it's 5 for 5. Some days it's 1 out of 5. A lot of times it's 3 or 4 out of 5. And I just review that and go on. And one of them, just from a business standpoint, even though I'm not on site selling and I don't take listings, although I might take a couple here or there, I might try to snag a buyer here or there. But one of my primary jobs is to provide future business for the company, and that's with builders or developers, and a lot of times that's land acquisitions or something like that. So one of my little things I try to tick off every day is, did I move a sale forward? Whatever that looks like. And then have the rigorous honesty to not BS myself into saying, well, I made a phone call or made a shot of text. No, did I actually make a sale forward or move something forward? And, but yeah, but back to the original thing, you know, it takes work, at least it does for me daily, to get myself into a proper mindset.
And that's the piece I wanted to bring back up, Paul, because I think
it's huge.
It's you when you described your version of your morning routine. First of all, I love how you made meditation accessible. It doesn't have to be what you see on TV. It can be whatever you want it to be. And number two, when I heard you describing what you did, I immediately went in my head to what Tony Robbins would describe as priming yourself to be in the right state, of mind.
100%.
And there's two things that any human can do to change their state of mind. And the first one is change your physiology. And you said, I sit up straight and I focus on my breathing. That's your physiology. And then the second part to changing your state is what you focus on. And instead of focusing on what was wrong, you decided to focus on what you were grateful for and what you wanted to accomplish that day. And it just totally changes. I'm certain, just from hearing you say that, the way you feel when you walk out the door now versus obviously 5 or 6 years ago is just like black and white, night and day.
Well, it is. It's 100%. I mean, I just actually got goosebumps because it's true. Someone who, like for me, who is drinking every day, and this wasn't a glass of wine or two. I mean, it doesn't matter how much. It was, you guys you'd be like, dude, how's this guy alive? But physically, one of the first gifts of getting sober was physically. In the morning, I was not hungover. And we weren't talking, God, I got a little bit of egg. I mean, we're talking brutal hangovers every day for a long time. It's still shocking how I did it. It's just shocking. So physically in the morning, I feel good. Now I'm 48 and there's a couple of knee and ankle issues and all that. And I probably didn't need to have the Neapolitan ice cream last night, but physically, and then having to, to start any new habit, there's some white knuckling in there. There's some head down stuff. And, I didn't jump right into a daily kind of prayer and meditation thing from the get-go in sobriety. I've had to practice that. And I mean, sitting upright with your eyes closed for 5 minutes, thinking and breathing into the nose and out through the mouth, at the very beginning, that might as well have been 5 hours. My brain, there was too much going. But over time, that discipline, if I do miss a morning, I'm aware of it by the end of the day, and so that little bit of discipline is just huge. And, and look, even though I've got two young teenagers, but two teenage boys, lights are off at our house at 9. They just, maybe 9:30. And so, and I know other people have other routines and all that, but, so I'm getting enough sleep and all of that, but, it's amazing. I'm 100% a morning guy. I mean, it's obnoxious. It's Saturdays and Sundays, there's groans throughout the house because it's like, by 6 a.m. I'm like, let's go.
Dad's ready to go. And it's amazing how it's amazing just how knocking down one small domino, like changing up a routine, can have such massive impact on your entire life. And it's for you guys listening, I know we've kind of gone down a track today, really diving
sorry about
deep.
That, guys.
No, don't apologize. We've gone deep into this, this watershed moment in your life where you woke up and you had to make a decision. Am I going to go this way or am I going to go that way? And what I love is how accessible the journey is, because I know there are people, there are real estate agents, there are investors, there are other people who listen to this podcast who probably listen from episode to episode and leave it being discouraged. And maybe some of them are even going to a bottle or to a needle or to whatever. We all have that outlet when, maybe this is the wake up moment. Maybe this is a moment in your life where you have to make a decision like Paul. Am I going to go this way or am I going to go that way? And am I going to be defined by fear or am I going to be defined by surrender and the gift of life? And guess what? Your life and your business does ride on moments. Impactful moments. We had a few episodes ago, Bailey Pate on, and she told a very similar story about getting into real estate, and that was kind of her escape from, her drug past that she walked through, and she was very open about that conversation. For you, you've been walking through real estate while battling this, and you made that decision, and whether it's changing the physiology, whether it's going through a morning routine. It sounds to me like little steps, one in front of the next, just radically changed the trajectory of your life. It started with giving up fear, all the way back in like, okay, I'm going to walk away from soccer and go into this. And then through this story of sobriety. And I think, Paul, I'm grateful for the story because I think it's impactful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's, for me, I had someone ask me the other day, and it was in the context of recovery, but, I was an everyday drinker, but so I go to a meeting every day and, I probably make 10 or 11 meetings a week, and half are on Zoom, half are in person, and it works for my schedule and all of that. And someone asked me, would you remove something from recovery? And the answer is no. I wouldn't remove. It all matters. It all matters. From a business standpoint, it all matters. And as a business owner, I am responsible for who turns the lights on. I mean, how does that get paid for? That's my responsibility. I'm in the middle of a couple broker complaints and issues with a couple of our brokers and some outside brokers. I don't like dealing with that stuff, but I need to deal with that stuff. That's just part of the gig. I'm also responsible for getting new business and keeping the future pipeline going. And all of those things not that long ago would fear me with dread and fear. I mean, this common theme of fear is, it's a big one. And to be able to have some faith in the process, at least for me, I believe in the process that I'm on the path that I'm following. And I know that at the end of the day, if I can just control what I can control, which is actually a lot of shit, and then accept the things that I can't. And what's crucial is I can accept something. It doesn't mean I have to approve of it. I mean, look at the political culture we're in. Am I going to waste my time on a mask or no mask argument with someone? Or am I just going to do what I need to do and get on with my day? So, what's been critical for me is through all of this is I want to have some peace with myself. And when I've got peace with myself, then I can have peace with my family. And what guides all of that is a power bigger than me. And I, call it God. Right. And that faith just permeates through almost everything. And when I do step in it, when I do say the wrong thing, when I do react poorly in a situation, I now have a mechanism of how to rectify that and make amends and change my behavior if I need to, without having to drink, first of all. But then also not just to beat the hell out of myself. I mean, it's such a gift. And, all of these things matter. And the scariest thing is when I walked into the rooms of this fellowship for the first time and declared who I was. I immediately felt a sense of belonging. I think the first step's the hardest one in anything we do. And fortunately, in real estate, God, guys, I stand on the shoulders of giants. My dad, number one. But other, when our brokerage, right, that we share a common brokerage, we've got people that have charted a path for us. Can we follow it? Do we want to follow it? And that's the stuff.
Well, I think, if I were to summarize right at the end there, I mean, it's fear or faith, you choose. And so as we kind of wrap this up and transition in the last segment of our show, I want to ask every listener that. Are you choosing faith or are you choosing fear? Whatever that faith looks like for you, faith in a better future, faith that you can let go, like Paul, and do something else, faith that you can step into that room if you need to and take that first step, knock over that first domino to sobriety. We all have that thing. We're all walking through a struggle. And so I just want to leave our listeners, Joe, with that question, really, fear or faith. And so we could keep talking about this, Paul, and I think this is going to be very impactful. I do, for sake of time, want to transition our show into the last segment, which is called 3, 2, 1 Action. It's the same 3 questions we ask every single guest. Are you ready?
All right, here we go. Paul, who is the one person who has had the biggest impact or influence on your business?
Bill Hurme, my dad.
I love that. And that's definitely come through. Right. Question number 2, Paul, and I'm going to put a slightly different spin on it this time because of our conversation. The question is, what's the most impactful book on your business? But I actually want to ask it a little bit differently. What has there been a particular book that's been impactful on your journey of recovery?
Yes. There's a tradition in the part of recovery that I'm in, which is, hemming and hawing how to answer properly. You know what? I'll tell you, I'm going to go off. I'll give you a totally different answer. I read a book when I was 13 or 14 called The Fountainhead by, I think some people pronounce it Ayn Rand or Ayn Rand. And in this book, The Fountainhead, which is fictional, there's this philosophy developed, and it was written in the 20s. Great read. I love it anyway. And it's called Objectivism. Now, it's totally secular, and it leaves out any sort of nature of spiritual or anything. But at its core, when I first read that, it's about an architect is the main character, and he won't be deterred on his pursuit, design and build the vision of buildings that he wants to design and build. And it's a singular focus. So The Fountainhead, from a fictional standpoint, I think the Bible is a very good read. One of my favorite scriptures is Old Testament. It's whatever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. That might be in Ecclesiastes. If you guys got a fact checker, you might want to check that out.
We'll put the producers on
so
that.
There you go.
I love it. I love it.
Again, it's terrible. You ask me an easy question and then it's a 5-minute response.
No, that's fine. No, I like it. The Fountainhead. Question number 3.
Yeah, Paul, as you know, this is the All In podcast where we really encourage our listeners to take what they heard today and to really go implement. And so the last question we have for you is what action item leaving here today can our listeners take to get over a challenge or to progress their life forward in a meaningful and productive way?
Well, there's a practical real estate answer that I don't think enough brokers do, whether you're on a team or a business owner. And I don't hear it enough. And maybe I'm not listening to enough of the right things. I think there's 2 things. You need to be an expert in your local market from just a data point of view. And you need to be a product expert. And there's no shortcut. You understand and learn product by going to open houses and looking what's on the market. And that's new construction, that's resale, that's whatever it is. That should be a part of your week, every week, rain or shine, lockdown, no lockdown. You should be in your car looking at homes. With that is you need to study the market. You need to understand what's selling, for how much, and all of that. In new construction, my builder clients, I'm responsible to having an understanding of 5 counties in the Puget Sound region. And that's a big area. And the only way I get that is I got turned on early in my career by a guy who was just a data freak. Price per foot, what's selling, monthly velocity absorption. So those 2 things, if you've got nothing to do, go look at homes. Get on your MLS and understand what the hell's going on out there. It is everything else, right? You guys know, you meet someone and you have the conversation, hey, what do you do? What do you do? I'm in real estate. What's going on with the market? Now, there's a way to answer that without looking like a 4-star, it's a family podcast, so I won't say that. Right? But that's huge. And,
well, yeah, market expert and knowing your product. So, and that is funny because agents come all the time. They're like, well, I've got nothing to do, or they're out having pool days down here in Scottsdale, and I'm like, come on. Like, what are you doing? Paul, hey, I want to thank you for bringing us deep into your journey and being raw and authentic. Sure. Because like I said before, I know it's gonna impact listeners. If obviously you're up in the Washington area, if our listeners want to get connected with you, want to learn more about you, your business, your story, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Best place is going to be email or phone. I mean, it seems like people text and stuff. So my email address is super easy. It's my first and last name, Paul Hurme. It's HURME at teambuilderkw.com. And phone number is 206-390-8179. And
awesome.
Yeah, and guys, I got to tell you, thank you so much. We didn't talk about some of the specific business things, and I'm happy to, I think everybody knows something. Everyone's an expert in something. From, we didn't even get to talk about builders and developers and why they're the best and most terrible people in the universe. But I appreciate the time. It's important that in our industry that there's so many things to talk about. There's lead generation, there's marketing, there's all this stuff. But I love being able to sit down with you guys for an hour and get to kind of causes and conditions. And And then the huge question for everyone, great, we've identified some of your personal hangups and bullshit. So what are you going to do about it? What am I, Paul? Great, you've made the submission. It's this, it's that. What the hell am I going to do about it? And that gift of being able to say, you know what, I am going to do something about it, is impactful. And anyone who's struggling, who's listening to this, man, there's a solution for whatever's going on in your life. There's, we say around my house all the time, it's, honey, God's got a plan. We just need to be willing. And for anything, our kid just started his new high school yesterday or 2 days ago. He missed the bus on the first frickin' day of school. I said, Nate, that's all right, brother. We'll solve it. And he got on there. So yeah, I know God's got a plan in my life, and I'm 100% willing. And I love coming on with you guys. Something useful.
We appreciate it, man, and we'll definitely look you up when we're in the Washington area. Guys, that is Paul Hurme. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the All In Podcast. If you are having some type of challenge, I encourage you reach out. The answer is usually just a connection away. And so I want to leave you with the line that we talked about already: fear or faith, you choose. And just like Paul said, you have the opportunity to choose and to change your life for the better. And as you're doing it, I want you to go out and do it by playing all in.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play all in.